So hello everybody, Merry Christmas. I know I haven't made a video for a while, but since I'm not being assaulted, robbed, or thrown in jail almost on a daily basis, I got a little bit of breathing room now, so I can get back to my YouTube stuff. So we were at the theoretical interlude, and I introduced the idea of a social forum and violence and managing of the violence by the hierarchies and the order of the sacred, the order of violence, and or order of force and the order of money. The three orders. That was the last video. It was 3 ways of controlling violence, and then he goes back to the history of how we were living 10,000 years ago in small scattered groups, tribes, myths, organized social order, and so forth. Then we go to 4,000 years ago when there was agricultural, there was the banding of villages into cities or regional centers like Babylonia, Egypt, China, the Harappans, and India, Japan, America, Africa. So at this time, the order of force emerged to supplement the sacred as a way of channeling rivalries and mediating competing desires. So first we were living in more of a harmonious society, but now a certain class is made of police, basically, that manage force. Instead of the common man, it's a special class. So the policemen took over the role of the priest. I already talked about the priest and the prince and their roles. To separate and punish deviants, the marginal, the new scapegoats. So now in this more of an authoritarian kind of society, the prince is not the scapegoat. So to channel the frustration of the people, they cannot now, because of the larger number of people and the smaller number of elite. That's weird enough. It's harder for the people to hold the powerful people responsible. Instead, the marginal and the deviants are the new scapegoats. It's like today, so many people hate Trump, but they can't kill him, even though they think he's a threat to their life and liberty. So the same thing happened around 4,000 years ago, where the police were introduced and different, and also a new a class of scapegoats emerged. So the prince assumed eternal powers. He reigned first as a god and then, in his own interest, by force. Only he could accumulate objects to use for his eternal role. Excuse me. Only he left evidence of his passing by a tomb. The birth of the individual occurred with the prince. So that's interesting, right? The first individual was the prince in this more godlike status 4,000 years ago, when the order of force emerged. So that's interesting. Anyway, others died anonymously. Objects no longer lived. Their spirits were extinguished. They became products whose trade was regulated by the police. So it always boils down to the money and the trade and the resources. So the trade had already started now, and it was organized by the prince and the elite class. The order of force held sway even as the order of money began to emerge in the 7th century BC. So more recently, the order of money began to emerge. The order of money would not finally triumph over the order of force until some 20 centuries later. So pretty much in our time, in the 1900s, is when, in the 7th century plus 20, that's 1300s, yeah. Pretty much around the time a lot of significant things happened in the Indian subcontinent, 1300. So in the year So he's saying in the year AD 1000, actually, in some small European ports, merchants of Venice, anybody? Uh, Far from the great empires of Asia, the idea of money took hold man's imagination. That's interesting because I'm sure I know that in Babylonia, for example, money was found even before AD 1000. So I guess it never just took hold. It was just here and there, maybe. I don't know. But the idea of money took hold. Money introduced the idea that all things could be explained by one unique measurement, one universal standard. Isn't that great? uh, I always found that pretty humorous. And it's funny that women really buy into the idea that a man can be measured by how much money he has. Like money is the only factor that men compete with each other against, you know. But anyway, that's for simplistic thinkers, simplistic creatures. That's why in India, a woman cannot get married and usually is married off by her parents. Same for a man. A young man is also stupid. In fact, he is more stupid than the woman. The woman is just more solipsistic and superficial in her thinking that she cannot make better judgment in the long run for herself and her family. So anyway, that's my opinion. I feel it's validated by enough evidence. But anyhow, money introduced the idea that all things could be explained by one universal standard. It radically simplified the exchange and manipulation of information. So it made it easier probably for the elite class. Exchange and manipulation of information. So it sounds like propaganda actually. Rivalry between men thus devolved upon the quantity of money that each person possessed. Devolved, right? The use of money developed rapidly because it was a tremendous advance over all previous ways of controlling violence. So rivalry devolved upon the quantity of money, and money developed fast because it was a great advantage for the ruling class and easier for them to control violence. More advanced way of controlling violence. The value of things was no longer the measure of the life of those who had made them or of the force of those who owned them. So no longer the measure of the life of those who had made them or the force of those who owned them, right? The two orders, the order of the sacred and the order of the force. Instead, money stood for things. It permitted many more objects to be traded over greater distances and allowed the creation of wealth in better conditions than ever before. So more objects traded over greater distances and creation of wealth in better conditions. So it basically, these advances are basically showing you how the divide between the rich and the poor is exacerbating. In fact, in the order of the sacred and the original state, there was no divide. The chief was just a common man who basically had a higher status, but not, I am assuming, too much difference in material comforts because he was basically surrounded by other people too, common people too. Objects could circulate without threatening the life of those who traded them. So yeah, many clear advantages of the order of money. Money, otherwise known as the market, or now the economy, or again as capitalism, all names for inextricably linked concepts, imposed itself as a radically new way of controlling violence, superior to the older orders of the sacred and of force. In the order of money, power was measured by the amount of money one controlled. At first by force, obviously, then by the law. The scapegoat is he who is without money and who threatens order by challenging money's distribution. It is no longer the possessed, as in the order of the sacred, or I would say the psychopath, nor the deviant, as in the order of the force, or more like the marginalized, but the beggar or poor or nomad who becomes the scapegoat in the order of money. So that's interesting. When you see more authoritarian societies and more violently authoritarian, right-wing authoritarian societies, Then you also notice how there's always a deviant class, you know, whether it's the pedophiles or the I don't know, the tax evaders, you know, whichever group they label, or the potheads, whichever, or druggies, hippies, whichever group they label as the deviants, basically the they're the scapegoats. In the order of the sacred is the people who do the wrong thing, obviously, because everyone is around each other and no one can, it's not so easy to get away with these frauds like in our society. But now in our society, it's not, especially in a liberal capitalistic society, it's the poor beggar or nomad who becomes the scapegoat, right? So that's pretty much obvious. Even the conservatives love to rag on the welfare queens and kings or whatever. So anyway, in contrast to the two preceding orders, where multiple social forms could coexist, cheek by jowl, as it were, in rival empires around the world, the order of money was organized at any given moment around a unique social form with a global imperative or mission. All right, we gotta take a break for a second. Ah, dang, my neck. All right, you know what? It's already been 11 minutes, almost 12 minutes, so I think I'm going to leave off on page 24 in the middle, the second paragraph, right? Actually, let me finish this paragraph, then I'll leave off. So, the order of money was different, where previously multiple social forms could coexist in other empires in the world, in different empires in the world. But when the order of money was organized, it was organized at around a unique social form with a global imperative or mission. Because that's what we see with the whole world wars, what happened after the world wars, where the power elite were trying to make a global, and they've already succeeded since NAFTA at least. It's pretty much, we're living in a global world. All the changes happening in each country are happening in other countries simultaneously or right after. So yeah, it's very true how money is different from force because it's a very global thing, one world type of thing. UN, one. The various social forms of the order were linked together by merchandise, which channeled the violence between them. All right, merchandise. So that's how now people compete, right? The psychopaths, they always need to compete with each other and win. So we have Amazon, you know, with their market shares versus Apple with their market shares, and each competing to get more numbers under their belt and laugh at the other. The various social forms were linked together by merchandise, which channeled the violence between them. And merchandise goes right down to food, okay? The rule of money reigned, shaping the law of relations in those intersecting realms between social forms. All right, so money controls everything. Money makes the world go round, or gangsters make the world go round, like Ice Cube says. All right, that's it for today. Dang, this book has really taken a beating in my travels. Anyway, till next time.